distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure this morning to introduce a very eminent Nigerian in the person of Pastor Itwa Ighodalo as our guest lecturer for the second in the series of the Bishop Colin Olapo Memorial Foundation lectures. He is a vibrant minister of the gospel, pastoring one of the fastest growing churches in Nigeria. He is also one of the foremost chartered accountants in the current country. And currently, he is a managing partner of the 5th largest accounting practice in Nigeria. He sits as chairman on the board of several private sector companies spanning finance, power, education, health, media, and entertainment. He has also been consulting and advising government at the federal and state levels since 1991 and is currently a council member of the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce and also the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA. He is a thinker, a social reformer, writer, and philanthropist. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I can go on and on and on about this wonderful person. Join me to welcome to the podium my brother, one of Nigeria's finest, Pastor Itwa.
Amen. Praise the name of the Lord. Amen. Please be seated. First of all, let me give honor to whom honor is due. The memory of our beloved founder, Bishop Kola Onolapo. The Bible says that the memory of the just is pleasant and right in the eyes of God. My prayer is that his legacy will never fail in the name of Jesus Christ. Let me commend and strengthen my beloved sister, his lovely wife, Reverend Dr. Mrs. Jane Onolapo. The Lord will continue to strengthen you and give you the power to continue this great work. Let me also thank and welcome the chairman of this occasion, indeed a brother, a friend, somebody with whom we have worked closely in this work of God and in one or two other areas, Pastor Taiwo Odukoya, the General Overseer of the Fountain of Life Church. Also the chairman of the Board of Trustees, who incidentally, he didn't say so, but I will say so, he's my cousin from my mother's side. We are second cousins from my mother's side. Both of us aspire to the throne of the Oni of Ife. But he chickened out around to London, and I decided to give it to one of our bros, who is the current Oni of Ife. We're both of Ife descent, and we're related from our mother's side. Reverend Dr. Sheldon Johnson, you're most welcome, and thank you for coming all the way from London to be part of this occasion. Pastor Josiah Onolapo, the Lord will strengthen you and be with you. Pastor Julius Orumumi, the presiding pastor of the Pentecostal Fellowship Assembly, the Lord will strengthen you, sir. It's always a delight to see you anytime we meet at occasions like that. Reverend Rotimi Orisha Jeffo, the Lord be with you and bless you. My friend Bishop Francis Shobeko, the Lord be with you also and guide and direct you. The representative of our Bishop Michael Kunko, the Reverend Charles Akimeji, the Lord strengthen you also. Our beloved MC, or the Vice Chair of this great occasion, the Lord continue to give you his ability and strength. What can I say about my brother, Reverend Dr. Adeni? Well, he's been very kind and generous in his introduction of me. And I want to thank him very, very much for his support over the years. I think I want to publicly acknowledge that. He never allowed the bankers to chase us. When we were in Christ Church, he was our banker. And he gave us tremendous support. Even till today, he still supports us. One of not my company, but one of the companies I consult for offended their bank. But somehow he made sure that the offense didn't pass the elbow. Amen. God will strengthen you. And God will do with you. And God will bless you mightily, in Jesus' name. Today we're going to be speaking on a topic that is very close and dear to my heart. And as many of us as are able, should please fix their eyes not on me, but on the PowerPoint presentation there, if you can. And if you cannot, just listen as I speak. I think there will be space for questions and answers. So if you do have your question as I speak, please note it down, and we will take it from there. I want to welcome and thank all the visitors and guests today. It's one thing to call an occasion, it's another thing to have people come, and because you have come today, I really honor you. And I do hope that what we will hear and what we will take away today will benefit all of us. I want to also thank all the members of the church that our bishop led, all those who have been supporting our beloved Reverend Jane Onalapo, the General Overseer of the Abundant Life Gospel Churches. I want to thank you all for your support, for being there, for making sure that this vision does not die, and will not die in Jesus' name. I think we can give all of us a round of applause. I want to thank my assistant, Olu, who has had sleepless nights working with me, putting this presentation together. I didn't tell Dotsu that when he was chasing me up and I was in London, because I knew if I told him I was in London, his blood pressure might go a bit up, because he really, really close marked me to make sure I was there, but I was in London, because it was the first year of our church in London's anniversary. So up until, and I almost missed my flight yesterday. It was the thought of Dotsu that made sure I made that. And how will he explain to his people that this man didn't show? So when he texted me yesterday evening that, am I coming? I said, don't worry, I'm coming, because I was already in my house. So I knew I was coming. But over the time, Ulu and I were working together to make this paper possible. Now, because we're talking about the role of the church in enhancing good government in Nigeria, I have a few biblical references that you need to look at. And you can go and study them at home when you get there. I like to believe that a lot of us here are Bible knowledgeable people. And if there's anybody here that does not know or share the gospel, you're most welcome also. Our brothers from the other side, from the other faith, you're all most welcome. So the Bible references are 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 1 to 20. Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2. I know a lot of people will know that one. 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 23 to 25. 2 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 14 to 15. And Esther chapter 1, verse 8. And I'm going to read very quickly some of them, and just run through. Okay, 1 Samuel chapter 8, verse 2 to 20 says, the name of the firstborn son of a man called Samuel was Joel. The name of his second, Aber. And they were judges in Bathsheba. And the sons of Samuel walked not in his ways, but they turned aside after lucre. They took bribes, and they perverted justice. These were the heirs apparent to the leadership of Israel. So it was not unusual, and it is not unusual to find leaders that go after money, that are selfish, that take bribes, and they perverted justice. So the elders of Israel gathered themselves together, and they came to Samuel where he was in Ramah. And they said unto him, Samuel, you are old, you've done well. Your sons do not follow your example. Which tells us a lot of us bishops and ministers that we should really minister to our homes. A lot of us tend to minister to other people and somehow forget to minister to our immediate church. So no matter how strong or powerful Samuel was, somehow he made a mistake with his own sons. You are old, your sons don't make us walk in your ways. Make us a king to judge us like other nations. This thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king. So he went to God in prayer. And the Lord said unto Samuel, listen to the people in all that they say, but it's not you they have rejected, it is me, God. Because at that time, the leadership was what you call a theocracy. It was the leadership by God through his priests. So the church and the government were in one person. Okay? The person heard from God, and then he judged the people, and he led them by saying, thus saith the Lord. That was the leadership that was in Israel, and that was the leadership that God originally ordained for this earth. He always led through what you call a theocracy, not democracy. But this is where democracy started. Okay? And the Lord said unto Samuel, it is me that they have rejected, because I have been leading them through you. And somehow now they have rejected me, and they have forsaken me, and they are serving other gods. So listen to their voice, but however, tell them and show them the manner of democracy they will have if there's no theo in that demo. Tell them the manner of demo they will have if there's no theo in that demo. And this is what he said. This is the manner of democracy you will have. Your king will take your sons. He will appoint for himself. He will take their chariots. He will make them his horsemen. They will be running after him. So when you see our president now, how many people are running after him? You see all the good. When my friend Yemi became vice president, and I couldn't see him anymore. I went to meet him, Godo surrounded him. I said, how can this be? But this is what he says. He says they will be running after his chariots. He will appoint them captains over thousands, captains over fifties. He will set them to hear his ground, to reap his own harvest, to make his instruments of war, instruments of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be confectionaries. You know, we have when they say, Obak Besedli. He will take your daughters to look after him, to be his confectionaries, to be his cooks, to be his bakers. He will take your fields. The land use decree came from this place, which is what we're fighting about in Nigeria right now. This so-called land use decree, where the government owns all the land, and then you have to beg back for your land. And when you cannot own that sort of resource, development is hindered anywhere in the world. When you have no ownership and no title to your land, development is hindered. This is what is causing the fire of resource control. This is what is causing the argument for restructuring in Nigeria. This is what is causing every pain that we're feeling, and a lot of us don't quite realize it. This is where this thing started. He will take your lands, okay? He will take your vineyards. He will begin to take taxes from you, 1/10 of your seed. Okay, so instead of paying your tithe to God, you'll be paying your tithe to the government. Okay, he will give to his officers and to his servants. He will take your men servants and your maid servants, your goodless young men, your asses. He will put them to work. He will take the 10th of your sheep. You shall be his servants. So, like the discussion I was having with my wife this morning is how people want to be servants of others. You know, people don't want to have a voice and a say. They seem to gravitate naturally towards servanthood, towards being led by the nose, towards being led by the whip, towards being driven by very wicked taskmasters. People seem a bit more comfortable with that. Coming on the flight from British Airways this last night, I decided to watch a film, and it was the 300 years of the Freemasonry. I decided to watch it to educate myself, and they wanted to look into the Freemasonry and the background and the history. One or two things they said: the Freemasonry is not a secret society, but it is a society that has secrets. And they call their leaders his worshipful master. Okay? So the best I can say is that it's an organization that is determined to make people have an object of worship and make them focus on something. I don't know if there are any of their members here, and you can come and see me after this occasion and we can talk. Okay? But what they have going for them is a brotherhood where they never betray one another. There are some companies in this world, big companies, if you are not a member, you cannot progress. Big institutions all over the place. And the head of them is the third person in the British monarchy, the Duke of Kent. So the British royal family, they're all Freemasons. Anyway, that's a story for another day. But what I'm trying to do is to use it as an illustration of how people like to be led by force and compulsion. Instead of reasoning together with God, God says, let us reason together. Okay? Let us walk out this thing together. Just obey my voice, and I will explain to you why. But people tend to want to be dominated by others. Okay? He says, you shall cry out in that day because your king which you have chosen you, and the Lord will not hear you. Nevertheless, the people refused to obey. Until today, the people are not obeying. Proverbs chapter 29 verse 2 says, when the righteous are in authority, the people do what? They rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people are in periods of mourning. 1 Chronicles chapter 29 verse 23 to 25. 1 Chronicles 29, 23 to 25. Solomon sat on the throne of the Lord as king instead of David his father, and prospered, and all Israel obeyed him. And the princes and the mighty men and the sons likewise of David submitted themselves unto Solomon the king. And the Lord magnified Solomon. If God is not in something, it cannot prosper. If God is truly not in something, it cannot truly prosper. The Lord magnified Solomon exceedingly in the sight of Israel, and bestowed upon him royal majesty that had not been on any king before him. And he gathered chariots and horsemen. He had 1,000 and so on and so forth. But what is important was that when the Lord's hand was upon Solomon and he ruled wisely, he made silver and gold as plenteous as stones. He made silver and gold as plenteous as stones. And cedar trees he made as the sycamore trees that are in the vale for abundance. And in Esther chapter 1 verse 8, when God's hand was on Xerxes, the king of Persia, he says he made a feast, and he commanded that the guests be permitted to drink as much as they wished. So it is in the hand of the leader to make the people drink as much as they wished. It is the hand of the leader to make the people have everything that they want. It is in the hand of the leader to bring about prosperity in the lives of the people that are being led. Good governance, or the role of the church in enhancing good governance in Nigeria. Good governance can be defined as an approach to government that is committed to making decisions that are effective, inclusive, and transparent. Effective, inclusive, and transparent. It is a commitment to doing the best with the resources available within the context of the challenges facing governance to make life outstanding for the generality of the people. Good governance is designed to make life outstanding for the generality of the people. The unfortunate thing about most people in government is that they go there for largely their own personal interest and not the interest of the generality of the people. And that is why a lot of us are feeling so much pain and so much suffering and so much difficulty in most countries, and especially in Africa, where we find ourselves. Very few. In fact, I can say less than 2% of our present day leaders have gone into leadership because they wanted to make life better for the average Nigerian. Less than 2%. And even out of those 2%, a lot of them are there more for personal aggrandizement and for enhancing their CVs other than making life better for people. So when from day one, the object for which people go into governance is faulted or defaulted or broken, you can never really have good governance. And our scriptures show us that the state of a nation is determined by the quality of its leaders. The state of a nation is determined by the quality of its leaders. Whenever there was a leadership breach in Israel and the people were not properly led, the people around them will come against them and they will go into economic recession. Sometimes for 10 years, sometimes for 5, sometimes for 20, sometimes for 40 years. And then the people will cry unto God, and God will not stop the enemies, but he will raise up a leader. From the book of Judges, you see, he will raise up a leader, he will put his spirit upon that leader, and the leader will begin to prevent the Philistines, the Amorites, the Jebusites, the whatever they were sites, from coming to affect the people and bring about yet another spate of prosperity. But the prosperity was dependent on obedience to God. The prosperity was dependent on obedience to God. Wherever there is no God, there is chaos. The Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 1 that when God was away from the mass that we call the earth, the mass was without form or void, and it was empty. And it was the Spirit of God that brooded over that mass, made love to the mass, brooded over the mass, spoke to the mass, encouraged the mass, embraced the mass, put himself in the mass, and then spoke. He says, let there be light. Before development, there must be vision. There must be direction as to where we're going. Wherever there is no light, there's no direction. And wherever there is no gospel, there's no light. And wherever there's no light, there's no direction. Can somebody hear what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
You know, one of the biggest fallacies they told us when we became born again was that get out from amongst them. Can somebody hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
Get out from amongst them. What has light got to do with darkness? But light is the controller of darkness. Can somebody hear what I'm saying? And politics is dark and dirty. Don't go there. They will kill you. They will do this. They will do that. And we didn't go there. And they have killed us. Whether you went or whether you didn't go, you are dead. Can somebody hear what I'm saying? It's one of the biggest lies of the devil from the depths of hell. And we are suffering for it. And Nigeria is suffering for it. One of my leaders today, I was talking to him a few days ago, he's a good friend of mine. And they were saying, Pastor, come, let's talk, this and that. I said, how are you going to do things? You want to do this, you want to do that. So I'm going to do everything. I said, why? He says, after God, it is government. He said, government is powerful. He's just gotten into government, he's the governor of one of the states. He said, after God, it is government. He was even telling them, I'm going to take all their land. He said, they're going to take their land. He said, yes. He says, after God, it is government. You don't know how powerful government is. our caves, in our churches, raising up holy hands, praising God, worshiping, and this and that. And the lifeline of our life is being truncated, being squeezed. And every day we're suffering. Now pastors are looking at tithe and offering, it is going down. It will go down. Because we have not done our job. Let us look at some examples of governance and leadership. Number one, those of us who are old enough to know this man, Idi Amin Dada, the Emperor of Uganda, third president from 1971 to 79. A sergeant became Major General, seized power. His rule was characterized by human rights abuse, political repression, ethnic persecution, extrajudicial killings, nepotism, corruption, gross economic mismanagement. He killed about 100 to 500,000 people. Until today, Uganda is still in economic crisis, till today. Meanwhile, Africa, and Uganda in particular, has some of the best natural resources in the whole world. And how many of you have a mobile phone? Everybody has a mobile phone. The most important element in the mobile phone is something called cobalt. And you find it between Zaire and Uganda and those areas. That is what is most important in a mobile phone. But not one mobile phone is manufactured in Africa. Not one. So they go to Zaire, they go to Uganda, they go to Kampala, they take your cobalt, they take it to China and to America and to Europe, and they make your mobile phone and they sell your mobile phone back to you. I was telling some people that Nigeria is the only country in the world where you plant yam in your backyard, you harvest the yam, you export it to Reverend Johnson in London. He will pound the yam for you, wrap it in nylon, and export it back to you to eat as pounded yam. It's a fact. It's a fact. They don't grow oil in Europe, but all your petrol comes from Europe. The oil comes from Nigeria. You take the oil to Europe, they refine it and bring it back to you. That's what Fela calls double wahala. Fact. They don't grow chocolates in Switzerland, ladies and gentlemen. Not one cocoa tree in Switzerland. But when they talk of chocolates today, you say Swiss chocolates. It's a big lie. There's not one cocoa tree growing in any part of Europe. The nearest place you find is Brazil. The rest place is Ivory Coast, Ghana, Nigeria, Finnish. That's where cocoa grows. But not one chocolate. So it's based in Nigeria. Maybe Bombita tries, Cadbury. They call it Swiss chocolates. How can your resources belong to another person? It's the fallacy of leadership in the environment that we find ourselves. A gentleman called Charles Taylor. He ruled Liberia for 8 years. Before that, he was a warlord. He killed cruelly his competitor Samuel Doe, and he looted state coffers. He used his troops to rape women. He sponsored a war in Sierra Leone so that he could get their diamonds. Today, Liberia is still struggling. A very good friend of mine called Robert Mugabe. We don't know his age. But he was in era 100 years. He's the one who said, better be careful how you treat your towel. Because the place where you used to wipe your bum is the place where you might use to wipe your face. That is what he's known for. Sleeping in council meetings, he's decided that he will be there until he dies. Robert Mugabe was a freedom fighter in 1979. He and Nkomo Joshua He became president, okay, but he has not stopped being president since 1979. He sent his cabinet on a wild goose chase for 13 days by a magician who said they had discovered diesel oozing from a rock. So you can imagine the kind of caliber of man that you have there. One of the worst human rights development indexes. Today the economy is terrible, the inflation is unbelievable. Keeps changing the currency all the time. Mobutu Sese Seko, some of you may know him, ruled from 1965 to 97. Okay? His personal fortune is estimated to be about 4 to 5 billion. I'm not sure he's still alive, but today we know where Zaire is. Omar Hassan al-Bashir, Republic of Sudan, did a lot of things. His assets were frozen, made a lot of money. Today Sudan is in chaos, and there's a civil war going there, divided into 2 countries. But it's not all bad news. It's not all bad news. There's a gentleman called Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, one of the greatest African leaders, served as a freedom fighter also, was president from 1994 to 1997, political prisoner for 27 years. Why? For there to be any good thing to come out of a place, a man must die. One of the problems of Nigeria today is that our leaders are not ready to die for this country. And for something great to come out of anything, somebody must die. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. No greater love does a man have than for him to lay down his life for the prosperity of his friends. Can somebody hear what I'm saying? And until we find that leader that is really ready to die for Nigeria, we have not started yet. Most countries you'll find that one leader or the other had died for them, had laid down their lives so that they may live. The reason why Obama became president was because the worst parts of Nigeria, and he sat around the table with a few of his Oxford friends and graduates and said to them, we can do it by ensuring that we do certain things. He strengthened the military, ended corruption, brought in foreign investment, developed infrastructure, and made Singapore to achieve a per capita income next only to Japan in East Asia. And Singapore emerged as the financial hub of the region. In 1960, Singapore was worse than Isaleko. It was worse than the worst part of Nigeria. They had no roads, they were living in mud huts, they were living in swamps and by the creeks. They are not educated. This man went to London or Oxford University to get a law degree. He saw the possibility that was possible, like most of our leaders. Came back and said, we can do it. They had no oil, they had a very shallow port, they had no natural resources, they had no land, they had no fish, they had no energy, they had no corn, they had no gold, they had no silver, they had no diamonds. All they had was their minds.
Mindset.
And a determination to make a difference. Now a lot of us go to Singapore and we are amazed as to what we see there. But Nigeria was much more advanced than Singapore in 1960. Before France had television station, we had television station. WNTV, first in Africa. Before they had radio station in parts of Africa and in Singapore, we had radio station. Before they built high-rises, we had built cocoa house. Most of the things you find in Nigeria have been there before a lot of other organizations. So why Nigeria is where Nigeria is today is your fault.